was kind of a crazy intro. Seemed like it went twice.
Okay.
Oh, hi everybody. I'm Kathy. I'm in Vermont in the United States. My can Okay, technical difficulties. I think I've got it now. I don't know what's happening. Kathy in the United States in Vermont, where it's so hot and rainy. My partners are traveling, and so it is me and Mary Porter Kerns. We've been art buddies for, I don't know, 5 years maybe, since COVID time. And I've started, I just call you Mary Flowers now.
I love it. That's great.
When I'm talking about you or mentioning you, or even in my head, and I've written it a few times, I'm like, well, that's not her name. So I'm here with Mary Porter Kerns, and I'm pretty excited because we started on kind of a mystical path at the Way of the Rose, and we prayed together, and then we took art together. And in the background, Mary was talking to flowers. Welcome to our conversation, Mary.
I am so glad to be here, Kathy. Thank you for having me. And
this is the second time we've tried this.
It is. This seems to be working better this time.
StreamYard was down.
Yeah, everything was going wrong the last time. It was clearly not meant to be. So here we are today.
So this one is meant to be. Okay, so we start each conversation here in season 2 by asking, we choose our guests based on somebody who seems to have sort of an ordinary, middle of the road life, and things turn, and you enter a magical realm. So tell us how that applies to you.
Yeah, I love looking back at it now and thinking about it the way you just described, like, poof, this happened overnight, but of course it didn't. And I was working in what was originally my father's insurance agency, and took over the insurance agency. I was in the business world for 30 years. And even though I'd studied art in college, I completely lost that and quit doing it, and had convinced myself I wasn't even creative until about 15 years ago. But what the switch was my son, who's now 32 and healthy, got cancer when he was 16. And that changed my world. That I fell off a cliff, but there was a little branch that caught me, and I held on, and we got through that. And my whole perspective changed after that. I couldn't just do what I was doing before. And opportunities started presenting themselves for me to explore myself, my creativity, the world, what made me feel alive, because I realized I really had felt pretty dead, pretty muted, pretty beat down by the business world for a long time. And so slowly, through a long series of things that would take me more than the time of this episode, I made my way through. And one thing that was always constant, even in all those years when I was in a fog, was I always gardened. I always loved having my hands in the dirt. That was a constant. And I didn't even realize at the time how much that kept me sane and kept me grounded. And, I studied studio art in college. So at first I thought I was supposed to explore visual arts, and I have, and I still do. And you can even see some intuitive process behind me. So that's more of a vehicle that helped me to get in touch with my intuition and my feelings, rather than what my deeper calling was, which is to write, and to write about the flowers, and how all that started, really, other than the lifelong of loving plants and always wondering why I was more connected to plants than animals, because I thought there was something wrong with me for a long time. Everybody talks about their pets, and I'm talking about plants. You know, I got my pet
Mm.
tree, you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I took an intuitive plant medicine course from Asia Suler in 2018, and that really set off a spark in me. Not only was it a course about how to get in touch with your intuition, but in there, she had one module of the course was how to make flower essences, and so I did that, and then part of that process was to do what she called an attunement with them. And I sat down and went through her process, and these messages came through. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Who are you talking to? I mean, it took me a while to trust them and to trust myself to be able to talk about them, that people wouldn't think I was crazy. But that slowly happened. And okay, I could talk for a whole nother hour about how all that process was, but I think that's enough. You get the background of how my life changed. And yeah.
So I credit Perdita Finn for getting the two of us together. And I remember reading some of her deep time books that she had us read. And that's when I remember you start speaking out about the flowers. So that was after it sounds like it was simmering underneath there for a while, and then you kind of stepped out of the.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, Perdita's a huge mentor for me, for my writing, and for the really understanding the deep time story, and allowing my ancestors to really speak to me, and just so many things that she's been instrumental in. But but I realized my vehicle to connect there was through the flowers, and how the flowers have been with us through our whole evolution as human beings, and have been our elders. And they've been, I mean, you can say that about trees, you can say it about mountains, you can say it about rivers, they've all been with us through our evolution. But there's something really special about flowers. I mean, we as primates, developed our hands, our grasping and reaching ability, and our eyes that focus forward, literally from reaching out to grasp flowers and or their fruits that they ripen into. And
wow.
I mean, they literally have fed us and made us, given us the sustenance for who we are. And it's not just the food. It's a deeper, energetic, spiritual relationship as well. They've got so much, and not just medicine too. I mean, as in physical medicine, but, spiritual medicine, emotional medicine, energetic medicine for us. They've always been there for us, and it's not us loving them; they love us too. It's a two-way, and I think we, as human beings, forget that the flowers want to speak to us as much as we, love looking at them and thinking they're beautiful. And people have been talking about talking to plants ever since the 70s. When that book came out, talk to your plants and stuff. But it goes both ways. They want to talk to us too. They just have a whole different kind of language.
I remember there are a few of your presentations on YouTube that are really great. Just Google, ask for Mary's name, and you'll find them. There's something that I keep thinking about this, because in one of my groups we're going prehistory. So if you think of history as the patriarchy, we'll move how to break down. That this last 5,000 years, this blip of warring times, and so the farther back we go, I didn't realize about we had green plants, we didn't have flowers. So talk to me about that. I'm not sure I understand entirely, but it sounds to me that flowers were sort of the explosion that made the differences.
So plants, any kind of plants I mean, flowers have been around 100 million, 150 million, maybe a little bit, maybe even big proto flowers as long as 200 million years ago. But plants as a whole have been around, another couple of 100 million years before that, maybe 300 million before that, the initial plants, and then the trees and the ferns and all of that. But the angiosperms, the flowering plants, started, like I said, about 100 million years ago, really taking off. And magnolia trees are that old. They're one of the oldest and most original flowers.
How can that be? Because it's on a tree. So there were trees, but the trees didn't have flowers?
Well, I mean, they were just an angiosperm that grew really big and was a tree. I mean, what's a tree other than a big bush? And what's a bush other than a big plant? I mean, really.
Okay.
So.
Right. Well, magnolias are as meaty and.
Yeah, so they're really tough. So, I mean, magnolias evolved even before bees were around. And so they developed their relationship with beetles as pollinators. And beetles are like, they'll eat anything and everything. And they're just like a bull in a china shop. So the magnolia flowers have to be pretty tough to put up with the beetles munching around all over them. Yeah.
Okay.
So even though
do you have beetles on your magnolias outside in your yard?
Both beetles and bees. I mean, now bees will pollinate and come to magnolia flowers as well, just because they're so luscious and they smell so great.
Yeah.
But originally it was just the beetles. But back to your original question. So the angiosperms really exploded after the last great extinction, 66 million years ago, and the big asteroid came in and made that great big crater impact, and there was like 70% of life on the planet was lost. And it opened up so much real estate, literally, that the angiosperms were positioned to really take advantage of that. And I think the difference between them and their predecessors, the ferns and the cichlids and the ones that don't make an encased seed, that's the difference. And those encased seeds become fruits and they become food and they create a lot more energy. But the difference is that they did a lot more collaborating with other life forms than had ever happened before. So they collaborated with the beetles. They collaborated with the animals. They learned to, you can call this science, or you can call it a love story, that, they collaborated and had this love story with all these other different organisms on the planet to get them to carry their seeds and their pollen around to spread themselves and to move where they needed to go, where they wanted to go.
You can call this science, or you can call it a love story.
That's right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. That's why my book is titled The Flowers Are Speaking, A Million-Year Love Story.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, and so on the bottom of the screen is Mary's Substack, which is incredible and so fun. And so become a subscriber, and then it will come to your inbox. And it's really rich.
Yeah, and it's free. I don't charge.
And it's another way of it's like our world right now can be feel really heavy, and opening up into this bigger world can be such a relief. You can maybe feel a little air and a little freedom just by exposing yourself to it.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you're out in the yard looking at one flower, or you're contemplating 100 million years worth of the flowers, both of them require, both of those little teeny acts just either make you either immediately present, which blocks out all the other stuff, or gives you that long story perspective that hopefully it helps me make some sense of the world, And when we look at the long story and knowing that everything is born and dies and is reborn over and over and over again. And you can see it so easily in the flowers because so many of them have such a shorter life cycle than we do. So we see them constantly being born and dying and being reborn. And knowing that that's what happens with us too is sometimes the only sane thing that holds a lot of hope, I believe.
It is really, really hopeful. They're still having their celebration color parties out there when all of this is happening. I know my so you said magnolia was one of the first ones. I just have so many questions. What were some of the very first foundational flowers that we had?
Well, I mean, I don't have an exact scientific kind of answer for you.
Okay.
But I mean, the magnolias and the ones related to them, like rhododendrons are a little younger, but they're related to magnolias. And there's a whole and camellias are related to magnolias, and so but they're all a little younger. Roses are a whole nother. The roseate clade is a whole nother group of flowers that isn't just roses. It's apple trees. It's a huge family of plants, and they're more like 65 million years old, I think. So a good bit younger, but still really, really old.
Yeah, but babies compared to a 300 million
year old
magnolia.
No, 100 million year old.
Okay, magnolia is 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
There must be, you see those charts. I actually just ordered a beautiful chart, and I don't know if it has flowers. It has the tree, how it but we're so self-centered. We think that you have to have two eyes and these things and a big brain. Yeah,
there's some great charts on the flowers that are actually circular. That just it's a kind of spiral, kind of circular, and it's a neat way to look at it. But I don't have one to easily pull up right now.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you send me one, I can put it in with the recording. Are you saying that because of the flowers, the insects came?
No, there were insects around before the flowers, but the insects exploded when the flowers exploded. They created so much more opportunity for the insects. Little mammals were hanging around about that. Little itty bitty proto mammals were hanging around too, but there were definitely reptiles and insects before the flowers. But it's when the flowers exploded and they created so much more food and all of this collaboration, and they worked with everybody and yeah.
It makes sense. And it's so interesting how some of them are so specific. I don't have any of my night opening. I don't know what you would call it when the flowers open at night and release their scents. That seems like the flowers that I have, that comes more in the fall. But it's so fascinating how you can see when you have an array, which we're starting to after 20 years of nurturing perennials, that certain pollinators like the spirea and completely different ones like the wild rose. And then I don't even know what goes after the, like nicotiana. I don't know how you say that. It's really crazy scented nighttime flowers.
Yeah. My favorite nighttime flower is the datura, the moonflower that's datura. And there's a hawk. Yeah, and Jimson weed's another name for it. And the hawk moth is its very special pollinator. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, and that's a flower that opens like it's tight, and then at dusk it starts to open, and then poof, all of a sudden it opens up like a burst, and that scent just comes out like you'd open the window at a bakery. It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, and those night scents some of them are almost too much.
Yeah, and it makes sense because there's not as much visual, to attract. And so, yeah.
Well, that does make sense.
Yeah.
You said something else. Collaboration is success. Are the and that made me think of the bees and the butterflies. Are we losing flowers like we're losing animal and insect species?
Yeah. Yeah. But, does anybody, I don't think we really know the extent, it's so hard. The diversity is so huge and who has, there's not enough people studying it to really, really know. And so I like to think that they're finding new homes, you know?
Okay.
I mean, they've got so much to teach us about how to manage changing environments. They've done this for 100 million years and survived. When it's gotten cold, when it's gotten icy, when it's gotten hot again, when it's gotten dry, and when it's gotten wet. And, some flowers, just like any other animals or insects, manage this better than others. But I think they have so much to teach us about, instead of trying to keep things the same,
Mm.
about how we need to change to survive. Because if you don't change, you don't survive. Yeah.
No, change can be so uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think that's how our early ancestors were so successful, because they were able to live in so many different kinds of environments. So that's how we originally survived. So just because now we have things the way we want them doesn't mean it certainly means the opposite. It means that we can't continue to have what we want the most, probably. Yeah, or at least not in the same way. We have to be able to change and be open to it. Maybe it's even that. Maybe we just have to be open to change. It's the whole thing about native plants. Well, native plants are great. I mean, nobody wants, invasive plants taking over their yard where they live. And that's completely understandable. And, it's perfectly okay for us to take care of our yards the way we want to take care of them, to make them the most livable for us now. But to condemn the whole species of an invasive plant because they're changing the environment, I think is missing the mark tremendously. So it's this dance between, okay, we really don't want them in my yard because I want my yard to be, fun for the kids to play in and not be whatever, yeah. But to condemn them as, like a whole race or a whole species, just because now they've come over to another continent and they don't have the same back and forth give and take that they did in their original environment. Who knows what they're bringing us, what medicine they're bringing us, what they're here to show us about how to survive in a changing climate. And we can't keep things the way they were. When people says, oh, are these native species? I'm like, okay, at what point in time are you drawing the line of what's native and what's not native? I mean,
yeah, right.
What half of the plants in North America were brought from Europe in the 1600s. So are those native or are they not native? Yeah. So
I have a friend who her entire career has been with invasives out in California. And I also heard, maybe it was you who said that perhaps weeds are bringing balance, or they're bringing what we need so that we can come into balance. For example, all the ticks we have and all of our rivers are lined with knotweed that is twice as tall as me.
Yeah, it's
it makes literal jungles.
Yeah.
And it's a medicine, a plant medicine for Lyme.
Yeah.
It's
such a contradiction. Yeah. It's so hard. But yet
it's so hard.
There's wisdom in there, but it's not easy wisdom. There's no real easy answers, no easy wisdom there, but it's some real wisdom, some real medicine. Yeah, Timothy Scott wrote a book, Invasive Plant Medicine. It's a good book.
Okay. I'll write that down and put it in our notes too. Timothy Scott.
Yeah, he was a good friend of Stephen Herod Buhner's.
Oh boy. Yep, I love that book. What is that book with the blue flowers? Plants in the Imaginal Realm.
Yeah, Plant Intelligence in the Imaginal Realm. That's my favorite. I like that even better than The Lost Language of Plants.
Yeah. incredible. Well, I think about that because we have, you know, just having a perennial garden over time, you start to learn, okay, so these plants, and I tried to buy things that were propagated nearby, and some of them thrive or they need to be moved. And then every once in a while, we end up with something I haven't seen. I'm going to call it a weed because I didn't go out and buy it and put it there. But they do so well, even compared to this really stable bee balm.
Right.
It just seems like it wouldn't be a mistake.
Right. Yeah.
Right? How could it not be
right?
Perfect? So will you pull me, do some of your flower work with me? Will you pull a card?
Okay.
And Mary created an incredible oracle deck. The flowers are speaking, looks so beautiful. And
Sure.
yeah, I gave my copy away.
Backwards, anyway.
Oh, it's not backward. I see it the right way.
Oh, okay. It's just me. Okay, great. Yeah. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I worked with it, and then I gave my copy away because I thought I could get more. And then Mary didn't have any more, but she's going to reprint it again sometime. So tell me how you work with. Let's work with some flowers. Tell me how this goes.
With the oracle cards?
Sure.
Okay. Because working with flowers and working with the cards is related but different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, with the cards, so let me just say this. So these are flowers I worked with personally, and these are the messages that came through to me. And I think they, in one sense, have a universal theme that often shows up for a lot of people. In the other hand, what I'm trying to say is you might work with one of these flowers and get a completely different message, just like as if you were working with herbal medicine, and people might say, well, this plant's usually used for this, but you might have this sense that, no, I need this other plant for that, or I need to use that plant for this other thing. So I really feel like the flowers always have individual messages for us when we work with them. So that being said, so it's just a good point to share that. So with the oracle cards, what I like to do if I'm pulling cards for somebody else is, you can do it two ways. You can just pull a card and see what card comes to you for the day as a, random, not random message for you. Or you can ask it a question. You can think about something that is bothering you and all of that and ask them a question. And I can do 1 card pulls or 3 card pulls, but so you tell me, what do you want?
Well, can we ask about the weed idea?
Okay. So let's see. How do we want to frame this question? What do you want to know about the weed?
Is there some wisdom about the way we think about how we label a very vigorous, alive, colorful plant as a weed that might be here for a reason? Is it here for a reason?
So is this like, how do we know, or what are we really asking? Let's try to clarify our question.
Are there such things as weeds in the flower kingdom?
Well, we know the answer to that. No, there's not. A weed is that we just don't know what it's here for yet. So let's see, though. But I know what you're getting at. Let's see. We want to know.
Could it be something about how to work with the weeds, what to ask the weeds?
Yeah. How do we give us guidance? Yeah. What guidance do we need to work with the plants that we don't know that we call weeds? Yeah. How's that sound? What guidance do we need? Yeah. What guidance do we need to work with the plants that we don't know that we call weeds? Okay. So I'm going to do a 3 card pull here. Get 3 piles. Get my deck sorted. Okay. And the first card I'm going to call the heart of the matter. Ah, you're going to laugh. there is a mushroom in this deck. Because there's a whole story here. It's called a golden egg mushroom. And so it's invitation. So the heart of the matter is, how perfect is that? The weed is an invitation. That's the heart of the matter. Wow.
Beautiful.
Okay. So what brought us here? Magnolia. Unconditional love. I love it. And then how do we go forward with these weeds? Oh, stinging nettle. Be vigilant.
Okay.
That's probably apt, because not all plants are completely friendly. You know, they have a right to protect themselves. Right?
Well, but nettle is such a medicine.
Yes, it is. And it'll sting the bejesus out of you.
And it does not feel good.
No. But it's so delightful. Yeah.
Right. What a huge lesson just in that.
Right.
Powerful medicine that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a wake-up call. That's what I think about stinging nettle. And literally, I read something in the history and lore about nettles that soldiers would rub it on their skin to help them stay awake on their watch at night.
Oh, God.
Oh. Yeah, that would work. Wow.
Yeah, that kind of makes me sad.
Right? And having coffee. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you walk outside and you're going to work with the flowers, what does that look like?
It's like, who wants to have a conversation today? Who's calling to me? Who catches my attention? That's always my number one lesson. It's, not just, and it might not just be who's the most beautiful flower today. It could be like, oh God, why is that flower like so beat up and bent and bent over? And it might be catching your attention, or I've got this one bush it grows like crazy. I planted it like 5 years ago. In the last 3 years, it just completely takes over the space that I thought it needed. I gave it a 6x6 kind of space, and it's more like a 15x15 kind of plant. Oops. So
what plant is that?
It's sweet bush, calycanthus, and it's just growing like crazy. There's 3 of them in a row in a place that doesn't have the room for them, and they're too big to dig up and move, and so my only choice is to cut them back like twice a year. And but I realized the other day I hadn't sat down and worked with them, and so I did. And so again, this is an example of, it's not always just the prettiest flower, that catches your attention. Right. And let's see, where did I put? I thought here. I'll read to you what I ended up after I went through my process with them. This is what they ended up saying to me. So Sweetbush says, "Your exuberance, your determination are your strongest tools to face your fears. Be big, grow big. Let nothing stop you. Never fear. The pruning, new opportunities will always arise." Because it doesn't seem to mind the pruning very much at all. It's the craziest plant. But that was like, be big in the face of your fears. That was the message I needed to hear that day. It's like, holy crap, It's like, don't go crawl in your cave, because that's my tendency. Get bigger. Share the flowers' messages more. Speak up more. Be more joyful. Be big. What other choice do we have? It's hard, but this is good medicine. Yeah. So it's like, I tell people, it's like walking into a room full of people you don't know. Like I used to have to go to business cocktail parties, and I hated that, to walk into a room full of people. Oh, so I'm like standing there in the room going, oh God, who can I talk to? And you'd always find somebody, and then it would start to feel better. But it's sort of like, so not that a yard full of flowers gives you that feeling, but it's still that feeling. Who catches your attention and wants to talk to you? And it's different on different days. You just never know. It's because it's a two-way conversation between you. The flower may be wanting your attention for some reason. You may need something from them. Who knows why? But anyway, so there's some irrational, unconscious chemistry there. And if you drop into your heart space and just kind of go with the feeling, like what flower, what plant is feeling juicy and alive and catching your attention, it's the very best place to start. Yeah. Because people would say to me over the years, well, you need to work with this flower. Why don't you work with that flower? I'm like, they haven't called me. I don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah. So
it's not time yet.
Right.
Wow. That's really fun. I don't think I even have favorite flowers anymore, because there's something incredible about every single one. Are you driven a lot by the way they smell?
Oh gosh, yes, but not all flowers smell.
Right.
But the ones that do, it's another level of memory, I think.
Right.
It takes it even deeper. And perhaps the ones that we don't think we smell
are talking anyway.
They're giving us chemical messages anyway that maybe we're sensing and we don't even realize we're sensing.
So tell me about that. What does that mean?
Well, that gets into, we talk about flowers have their own language. Well, what is their language? How do they communicate? And the biggest way they communicate, and this is a lot about what I do in my workshop, is we'll spend time talking little bits about the science to help our minds get comfortable with how the flowers sense the world and communicate with the world around them. But the very biggest way they do it is through chemicals. They put out these biochemicals, and not all of them are fragrances. Some of them are, or fragrances we can sense. Okay, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of chemicals that each and every plant is putting out every day. And we only know the tip of the iceberg about what that does. I mean, they've scientifically shown that if one tree is being attacked by a cicada, that they'll put out a chemical, and all the rest of them will, then respond and put out their defenses. But I think that it's so complex. It's like our language. Like, it's as complex as our spoken language. This is how they communicate, and it's mind-boggling, actually. And so if our smells, the ones we can smell, stimulate our memories in such a
intellectual,
non-intellectual way, in such an emotional way, what other chemicals and fragrances are they putting out that influence us? And I think all of this influences our connection with them and the messages that come through, and touches our imagination and our intuition, and all of that starts to gel and become the communication. And it makes sense. You think about our ancestors, who somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, in the previous 3 million years, this is how they communicated with plants. This is how they knew what plants to eat and what plants were medicine. It wasn't just trial and error. It was a communication with the plants. They sensed that this plant's good for this thing. I mean, it was, some of it was tasting and some of it was trial and error, but it was more than that. It was a communication. Like, I'm here for you for this problem. I'm here for you for this. And it's hard to explain, but I think we all know that. We try to rationalize our intuition, and we can't. There's just things we know, and we've forgotten how to trust our intuition. And this is the key thing that is critical for being able to have a relationship with a plant, even more than an animal. Animals are more like us. They respond in ways, they have eyes and they have, paws, or, and they respond more because we're animals, they're animals. So it's easier to relate to our pets.
Yeah.
But this is that we have to slow down to drop into a different, and really drop into our heart, and really use our intuition and our imagination when we're communicating with plants to really hear their messages. Yeah.
Which is our birthright, and we've pretty much, we got too busy and we forgot it. It got scared out of us.
Absolutely.
Intellectualized out of us.
Right.
But it feels like people are understanding that we need some of that back.
Yeah.
You said something about the plants, their life cycle is fast but super long.
Yeah, maybe that was confusing. I mean, a lot of flowers, well, perennials obviously live for a number of years, and then the annuals just live for 1 year. And so when I said fast, that's what I meant, in that, even some perennials live longer than us. Like I know my peonies they're often live 100 years,
Wow.
Yeah, but say a butterfly bush, I've never had one live more than 5 years. I can't seem to keep them, So, anyway, but the point being, the plants in our flowers in that live around us often have a shorter lifespan than we do. So that's all I meant by that.
Okay.
But yet I meant the continuum of their life, death, and birth and rebirth. It's immense. It's so much. It's millions of years, and all of that's carried in their memory and their DNA. Just the way ours is. We have all this memory in from our ancestors that is carried through story, through our DNA, through all the different ways we know things. But theirs is so much longer and larger than ours, because Homo sapiens have been around 300,000 years, and magnolias have been around 100 million years. It's a lot more. And it's just fascinating to think about that. And it's comforting to know that these flowers have made it through so many changes and so many cycles of life and been able to adapt.
It's very reassuring, because it seems like they're our allies right now, as landscapes, weather, politics, like what isn't changing right now.
Right.
So it's time to look at the forget-me-nots.
Right. Yeah. Literally.
Those are one of my favorite. Yeah, literally.
Don't be forgotten.
And those they're so funny because they jump around, and I've lived in one place for 24 years, and I haven't figured out what they're, why, but I feel like I will at some point. I hope to.
Yeah.
Because they're one of the first flowers. They're the flower that says, hello, you can come outside without your big jacket on.
Yeah.
And I just have so many questions. I'm going every which direction. You mentioned flowers as elders. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, that's very related to what we've been talking about, the long story. But I see flowers as, so we talk about their short lifespan, but I see them as a continuum. Mm-hmm. Like, I think our generations as animals, as human beings, is more distinct than how I think about flowers. I think of flowers as more of a continuum. Now they're blooming, now they're making seeds, now they're under the ground, now they're back again. Even if they're annuals and they die, it's still, they feel like a continuum. Like your forget-me-nots, they're popping up here and they're popping up there, and somehow.
So maybe humans haven't been around long enough for us to recognize that in ourselves.
Yeah, and our religion decided to tell us that we don't reincarnate, and I don't think we have near enough of an understanding of our own cycles of how our soul comes back into our bodies. But with the flowers, it even feels more like a physical, like they're on this side of the dirt or they're on that side of the dirt. It's just like, and maybe that's true of us too, but it's like, which side of the dirt are they on? And there's still just a continuum. And so, I think you asked about them being elders. So it's just any being that's lived that long has got so much knowledge about how to survive, and they're carrying it in their seeds and in their DNA and in both sides of the dirt. Yeah.
I've never heard it put quite like that, but I really like that.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to learn about listening to the flowers and get into this love story, what do they do?
Well, if they're just want to do it themselves, they start with what we talked about. Go outside to see who wants to talk with you, and slow down and sit with them. Observe how they grow. Um, Even then, take some time and do a little research about their history and their lore and stories that have been told about them. Some plants have a lot of lore and history because they've been so tightly involved with human beings for thousands of years, and others have always been wild and like, I don't have any interest in being in the human world too much, and they don't have so much lore, but they still have a lot to share and a lot to give with us. So that's a little overview of what you can do yourself if you want to really dive into this deeply with me. I teach a workshop that I've taught 4 or 5 of them over the past year. I'm going to have my next one is starting on August 26th, and it's 5 sessions over 5 weeks, and it's called Exploring the Secrets of Flowers, Rekindling Intuition and Joy with Earth's Oldest Teachers. So that's information on that is on my website. You can go there and read about it if you're interested. In between that, I talk about bits and pieces of all of this in my Substack posts. So I encourage everybody to subscribe for free, and get my posts when they come in your inbox, like 2 to 3 times a month usually. And yeah, you can't do this wrong. Basically stop and smell the flowers. That's a good way to start. Yeah.
Do you use flowers as medicine? Do you do the essences, or
I don't make essences anymore. They help me as a bridge to feel the connection with the flowers originally, but then I found I didn't need to do that to hear their messages. And I felt that energetic medicine with the flowers that comes from the flower essences. I didn't feel like I needed it to do the work that I was doing. Mm-hmm. But I do make some tinctures and play around with herbs a little bit. I do not consider myself an herbalist. I just do this for my own interest and pleasure. And so, yeah, I feel like I do use flowers and herbs for medicine, but it's just something that's an aside interest of mine. And I don't offer advice on how to use them medicinally. That's not my expertise. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's more about how to connect with your heart and to get emotional support and healing, and or messages that you need, or connection with your beloved dead, or so many ways the flower can help you, and not just as herbal medicine.
Right. I wonder, people have been using plant medicine for a long time, is my understanding.
Absolutely.
But then we take it to a crazy degree where now it's commodity and.
Right. Yeah, because I think that what you need as medicine for you today is probably out in your yard or outside your front door. Mm-hmm. I think plants can be used in so many different ways to help the individual person. There's a real gift for the people that really understand this plant spirit medicine, and what you individual plant you need, or we used to understand this. So if you have a problem and you start to want to work with plants medicinally, look for what's around you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't have to be the Chinese herbs from the other side of the world. They're great, right. But right. Yeah, that's not the only ones.
Which also makes me think that, you have something striking, if mallow comes up all of a sudden, like why?
Right. Yeah.
Does it know? Does it know something? It probably does.
It probably does. right. And it's there to answer whatever kind of question you have. If it's a physical, medicinal question, if it's an emotional question, if it's a what do I do with my life question, it can probably help if it's that apparent in your, that visuals, has popped up so strongly in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not like you need to figure out this answer in a day either. It may take you a whole season or several years.
Sure.
There's no time frame that matters. It's sometimes it takes me, even after I like, oh, boy, I really am starting to connect with this flower. It still may take me a month or two before I really get the whole message. And sometimes it's like instant down, like that. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I just had a question fly out of my head. Oh, how you must have read Monica Gagliano and the tests that she does. How do you feel about that kind of thing, where it's I'm thinking of a TED Talk where this man has he has robots that he's growing the plants, and it's all consistent and it's all perfect for the plants, and they're doing so well, but it just feels like they've been taken out of their environment. I don't know. They're not getting regular sunlight. That sort of bothers me. Is it like factory farming?
Is it for what are they doing with the plants? Is it for the scientific experiments to prove their intelligence, or is it?
No, stuff to eat.
Oh, stuff to eat. I don't know. I have really mixed feelings about that too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the getting into your heart piece where,
right.
We all get to say, that's not for me, or.
I mean, love situational. I mean, perhaps if that's done with really clean ingredients, that is preferable to the other option you have at some place or some point in time. But I mean, wouldn't be my go-to. Yeah.
Right.
I don't. Wow. I don't live well with absolutes.
Yeah.
It's too hard. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm gonna go outside and talk to my weeds and see what what business they're up to.
Oh my gosh, this is what I've been pulling for years. I never even thought to think about what it really is. And I mean, it
Uh-oh. It seems like Mary's connection isn't great. And we're almost at the end.
That was me. I lost you for a second. I know. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I can grab my hotspot from it, but I think we're here. I'm going to touch it. Okay.
Yeah, and we're almost at the end. Anyway, this is time for gratitude for your time and attention, and your years of work. This is how long have you been doing this now? So almost 10 years.
Yeah, specific. I mean, I started that class in 2018, so that was 7-8 years ago. But in essence, how many lifetimes? Probably.
Right.
I mean, right. I was an herbalist or a, herby kitchen witch, in prior lifetimes. Yeah. So.
I'm sure you were.
Yeah.
And flowers in your hair and barefoot or outside.
Little old lady with gray braids, that people came to my cottage. Who knows? I don't know. Right. I mean, it's just maybe that's wishful thinking, but I don't know. I don't think so.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
So we talked about you have an upcoming workshop. Everybody go to Mary's website. It's easy to find on there.
Yep. theflowersarespeaking.com. Yep.
And anything else that you want to tell us about before we sign off?
I don't think so. I just so appreciate your time. It's been so good talking to you. I really enjoy being with you so much, Kathy. This is great.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I don't get to see you as much as I would like.
Yeah.
As much as I used to.
We'll have to do something about that.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna end our stream. Thank you for the time and attention, everybody. And be well until next week. Yeah. Thanks, Mary.